Good afternoon, students. This is Arindam Bag here, and today we are going to discuss about act-wise summary of the play *The Ghost*, written by Henrik Ibsen. So, in my last presentation, I discussed about the plot, some technique, structure, symbols, and even about the title. If you want to know about it, please visit my earlier presentation, which is available in my channel. So today we are going to deal with the summarized part of Act 1. Now I have decided, or rather it has been divided into 5 sections. The first act is divided into five sections. Now I tried to point out the important part or important events in Act 1. So let us start our presentation without wasting any more time. So what we have here. So the entire play takes place in a space in Mrs. Alving's home overlooking the garden. So this is the setting we are talking about. It consists of a large room in the foreground and a smaller room in the background, which looks out onto a forge covered with mist. Now this particular word forged is actually a narrow section of sea in the land. If you check the map of Norway, you will find that the coastline of Norway is not simple. Rather, there are many carvings out there. So narrow sections, sea enters into the land in such a way that is been known as forged. So covered with mist. So Jacob Engstrand stands at the door to the garden, while the maid, his daughter Regina, tries to make him leave. She doesn't want to. She doesn't want him to wake the young master, who is Oswald, obviously, who is asleep upstairs. She alludes to instant drinking and bad behavior. He insists on talking to her and describes the seller's establishment he wants to open with the money he has made working on the orphanage. So it has been clear that Engstrand is a drunkard, he is alcoholic, and Regina doesn't like it. Rather, Regina desists it, and she is not happy with the behavior of her father. And it is also clear to us that Engstrand want to establish an orphanage, or rather an establishment. So he wants her to come with him and work in the establishment. He hints that she could find a husband or even prostitute herself. He even alludes to the $300 her mother Johanna allegedly earned for sleeping with the yacht man who impregnated her with Regina, which is none other than Captain Alvin. So we discussed about it earlier, and we also knew from the character map that Regina is actually the daughter of Captain Alvin, and she will later realize it. It is not clear at that moment. At first, it appears that she is the child of Engstrand, Jacob Engstrand, but later on, it will be clear to her that she is actually the illegitimate daughter of Captain Alvin. So, uh, she balks at his suggestion and complains of how poorly he treats her. She seems very proud of her position as a servant in Mrs. Alving's home. I told you earlier also about it. She makes Engstrand exit by way of the kitchen door. As Pastor Manders is coming up the front walk, so she did not want anyone to see that Jacob Engstrand was visiting. So although he is angry, Engstrand agrees, and as he wants to avoid the pastor. So they have their reason to avoid each other. Now in the next section in this slide we will see that the pastor enters and Regina greets him cheerfully. The pastor asks if everything is ready for the dedication of the orphan asylum in the morning. He notes that Regina has filled out and they quietly chat for a few minutes. Pastor tells her that she should go work for her father because he needs a guiding hand. So, exactly what Jacob was asking for. Regina won't hear of it and continually tries to ask the pastor if he has any ideas about whom she should marry. He constantly interrupts her, insisting that her father is a good man and deserves her filial help. And finally, he asks if he can see Mrs. Alving. Actually, the pastor came to see Mrs. Alving. So, here are some observations we have. Right from the very first scene, Ghosts deals with the conflicts between generations. Filial piety, or the idea that a child should respect his or her parents, is an issue from the start. Engstrand himself admits that he is a bad drinker, yet he doesn't seem to believe that he mistreats Regina. Regina, on the other hand, will not consider returning to live with him. The pastor brings up the issue again. As we will learn later in the play, Engstrand is skilled in manipulating the pastor, and he has convinced him that he is a good man and that the pastor should talk Regina into helping her father. Obviously, the pastor doesn't know the side of Engstrand that would suggest that Regina prostitute herself. So, additionally, the pastor is a strong believer in the filial piety, as will be seen later in the act as he discusses Mrs. Alving's relation with her son. Clearly, the pastor is a character that sticks to ideals even while he is blind to truths that are obvious to other characters, such as the fact of Engstrand's immorality. So, in the next part, we can see that in the beginning of this first act, we see two sides of Regina. While she is disrespectful of her father, she is full of respect for the pastor. Yet both behaviors are a result of Regina's sense of pride and desire to move up in the world. She treats her husband with disrespect not only because he mistreats her, but also because she considers herself above him. She declares that she doesn't want to be seen with him. She treats the pastor with great respect, even flirting with him, asking him whether he thinks she has filled out because she wants to earn his respect and possibly meet a husband through him. Later in the play, we will learn that the question of Regina's class is more complicated, but even at the beginning of the play, we must understand that she has a complex understanding of her own current status as well as her potential status. In these first two interactions, not only do we see two sides of Regina, two sides that speak almost completely different languages. One colloquial, obviously, while speaking to Jacob, the other an attempt at educated conversation, but we also hear Engstrand speak two languages. See, both of them are actually bilingual in this fashion. On the one hand, his language is vulgar, containing curses. His language reveals that he is a common rough man. On the other hand, his language is full of cliches. He says things like this world is full of temptations and speak of what a child owes its father. With these phrases, we see the hypocritical side of Engstrand, the side that has fooled the pastor into thinking Engstrand is a good man to whom Regina would do well to return. So, this is the first part of Act 1. So, let's move to part 2. So, in part 2, we find that Regina goes to meet Mrs. Alving. Pastor Manders examines the books on the tables. Mrs. Alving enters and they discuss Oswald's return. Oswald is the child of, the son of Mrs. Alving. He has been gone for 2 years. They sit down to discuss the paperwork surrounding the orphanage. The pastor interrupts and asks Mrs. Alving if she enjoys the book she owns. She says they give her confidence and the ideas she finds in them confirm her opinions. He doesn't approve of the books even though he has not read them, but he has read much literature that condemns them. He begs her to keep her opinions to herself, especially in regard to the founding of the orphan asylum. Mrs. Alving looks over the deeds and contracts for a long time. She is satisfied with the paperwork. The pastor also convinces her that she should not purchase insurance for the orphanage. So this is something which is related to the religion. People who are you know, radicalized. They believe that all the things will be cured, all the things can be cured or can be controlled by God, and there should not be any insurance or things like that, because purchasing any insurance or things like that, that will surely show your distrust towards the God. So this is outrageous, I don't know, but this is something which happens. People try to keep their influence in this way, that please believe in our God and everything will be okay. So anyway, religion is always be like that. People related to the religion, they always try to create things like that, create a situation like this. He thinks that many influential people might not approve because buying insurance would be a sign of not having enough faith in God. The lady agrees eventually, which will be very much dangerous. Later on, you will realize the orphanage will be burnt down. Their conversation turns to Jacob Engstrand. The pastor insists that he is trying to lead a good life by daily visiting his daughter Regina so that she can keep him on the right path. Mrs. Alving objects because she knows that Engstrand doesn't visit all that often. The pastor goes on to suggest that she should release Regina from her servant's position so she can work with her father. But Mrs. Alving objects violently, swearing that she has taken Regina into her house and uh, Regina into her house and will not let her leave. At that moment, she hears Oswald coming and says there is no need to discuss the matter further. So, this is what happens here. Now, we are moving to the comment section of part 2. So, what we observe here? Mrs. Alving's anxiety over letting Regina to go back to her father hints at the existence of deeper secrets. This will be revealed later in the play. Throughout Ibsen's play, many events at the beginning of the play are only understood fully at the play's end, like the insurance part. You will realize at the end. For this reason, the play merits at least one rereading. The discussion over the insuring the orphanage is such an event that audience cannot yet know its significance. It will be later revealed how important it was. However, the amount of the time Ibsen dedicates to the discussion hints to the audience that the matter will become important later on. Thus, the conversation serves as a kind of foreshadowing. The audience wonders why insurance will be significant and what will happen to the orphanage. Through these dialogues, the audience also gains insight into pastor's methods of persuasion. Yes, that what we can see. He was successful in his persuasion. We see him easily convince Mrs. Alving not to insure her orphanage. His argument that public opinion would not approve is a flimsy one, but because he puts it intelligently, he is able to convince. Mrs. Alving, his ulterior motive will be revealed later in the play. At the same time, the pastor's own gullibility is glaringly obvious. He is convinced that Engstrand is a good but needy man. Whereas we know from Engstrand's conversation with Regina that the opposite is, in fact, true. It is important to note here how Ibsen uses irony and suspense to keep the audience interested in his play. By making the audience privy to various conversation, the audience knows more than any one character. Audience knows the real picture, but Mrs. Alving doesn't. Thus, the audience wonders when a given character will reveal information to another or find out a secret that the audience knows. The simultaneous presence of gullibility and craftiness in the character of the pastor results in a strong sense of irony. So, that's all for today. So, thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe my channel and help my channel to grow. Thank you again.